Hi there, gang, and welcome back to our Stress-Free Weddings podcast. I'm Sean. I'm the founder of OurStressFreeWedding.com. I'm also the owner of Alto Entertainment, one of the largest full-time DJ services in the state. I am joined by my trusty sidekick with me, Mr. Andrew Cruz.
Hello.
He is, so I have been working on titles for you, because titles are important.
Of course.
Right? So here's what I've come up with titles for Andrew is Director of Vendor Development.
DVD.
DVD. We could shorten it.
Director of...
VD. No, wait.
Shoot.
We're gonna still work on the titles.
We'll workshop that.
This is where my head goes during the day. This is what Sean thinking of. Titles for Andrew, important. I don't know. But he's also one of our senior trainers for Alto Entertainment. He's been with us for 8 years. He's really good at what he does. And one of the things he's getting gooder at is the podcast here, too. So it's always good to have you back. And most importantly, we are joined by a guest now.
All right.
Nichole's here.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I am so excited to have you here as our very first guest. Now, for full disclosure, for our tens of listeners, you and I go back a few years. We've been friends for a while. We have, I've had the pleasure of working with you at a bunch of weddings, and you've worked with a bunch of the crew from Alto Entertainment, so you kind of know us as well.
Right.
And I have made it no secret that I think your pictures are incredible, and we've got them up on the screen right now. So for those of you watching or listening, actually for those of you listening, you should be watching because we're going to have these pictures running throughout the whole time here. But we wanted to have Nichole here because I want to learn more about why did you get into photography? Let's start simple. Let's start with that. What got you into photography to start with?
Well, honestly, my mom had gotten me a point and shoot camera when I don't even know how old I was, and I spent my days taking pictures of my cats. And my ultimate goal was I was going to have one of my photos on the cover of Cuddly Cuties folders.
Nice. I remember those. All right.
Right. I'd gotten one that turned out really good, and I was super excited about it.
Did it get on the cover?
I sent it in, and I never heard anything. I'm pretty sure they went out of business around that time.
So pictures of cats.
Late.
Here's pathetic. Here's how. This is what I did yesterday. I took a picture. I'm not sure if I can show that to one of our cameras here. So I took a picture. There's our cat. It's Milo. Milo is my new best friend at night. And he was sitting on my lap. I'm like, oh, that's a super cute picture. So you started with cats. So I'm on the right path.
Right. Yep. Not too long.
So
I'm gonna be a pro.
When did you kind of realize, ooh, I'm not too bad at this. This is something that I think I could do?
Honestly, I had taken a couple photography classes in high school, and it was always something that I really enjoyed. I didn't actually think that I'd be able to make a living off of it, to be completely honest. But, when life happens and you try to figure things out, I was listening to an audiobook. It was called, I think it was 28 Days to the Work You Love or something like that. And in that, I was just waiting for some sort of epiphany, like, what am I supposed to do with my life? And one of the things that they said at one point in there where it was, think of one thing that you can spend hours on and it only feels like a few minutes have gone by.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure I was playing around in Photoshop while I was listening to it. And I'm like, okay, this is maybe something
Here's
worth
your sign, right?
pursuing. And so I decided that I was going to give it a shot, and here I am.
So when you decided that it was kind of, that, okay, you figured out you're on the right path.
Right.
So what age? How old were you when you kind of came to the conclusion, you know what, this is where I need to be?
It was 2011, and so
we are bad math. So 11 years ago now, right?
Yeah, I was 23.
That's awesome. It's my sneaky way of saying, how old are you, Nichole?
Right.
You have to tell the world, but everybody knows. No, but I think that's cool because I have always believed that when you find the path that you're meant to be on. And I think there's a lot of directions that people can go in life. I mean, you can go your whole life never being on the path,
Right.
quote unquote, and still lead a very happy, fulfilling life. But when you find what you're kind of truly meant to do, I think things just click. It just
Right.
kind of falls into place and just grows naturally. And of course, I'm not taking away the hard work and stuff that goes
Right.
with it. But when you find that moment, you actually have that, ooh,
Right.
this is what I'm supposed to do kind of thing, right?
Right. There's a passion behind it that I feel like really helps kind of drive you forward versus when you're in something that you're not super passionate about, you just kind of
Right.
a lot of times it's a little more stagnant.
100%. So I'm guessing you didn't start with weddings.
Nope.
So where did you start? Like, as you kind of realized this was time to do what I want, this is what I'm meant to do. What did you start with?
My initial goal was always seniors. I always thought that would be a lot of fun. They tend to be a little bit more creative, more open to new ideas, and to be like, I actually had said at one point that I didn't think I would ever get into weddings because I thought it was too much of a time commitment. I'm like, it stresses me out that I'm going to be like booking things like years in advance. But it was actually one of my brother's friends was getting married, and I asked her who her photographer was going to be, and they said that they couldn't afford one. And I felt so bad for her. So
You're like, ding, opportunity.
Right. Well, and I was, I had just kind of gotten started, and so I'm like, I can't guarantee that these are gonna like be great, but it'd be something.
Yeah.
And so I offered to photograph her wedding, and from that I ended up booking one of her bridesmaids' weddings.
It just kind of
And-
grows, right?
right.
It just kind of
And-
snowballs.
One of
Yep.
those you get paid by exposure deals.
Pretty much.
The horror stories that you hear.
Right. Hey, it worked out.
You know what I think is cool, and one of the things that I have kind of always believed. I mean, it's when I interview like new DJs to come work for Alto Entertainment, or even any wedding that I do, anything along those lines. And it's funny that you'd mentioned that you started with family, and one of kind of my core beliefs, and it's really kind of carried over into the Our Stress Free platform, is that we look for vendors that treat their client's day, so that the couple's day, like their family, like it was their own wedding.
Right.
Now that I'm older, let's go with more mature. Now that I'm more mature, now my question is when I hire somebody is like, would I trust this potential new person to DJ my kid's wedding? That's my my thought now. And when I was younger, it was would I trust this person to DJ a wedding that I was specifically requested for? Would you treat them like family? And man, I have seen you in action. I have seen the connection that you have with your clients. I mean, you just kind of read your reviews or comments to get a good feel for that. But tell me about that connection. I mean, it's so blaringly obvious. Just talking to you for a couple seconds, how you connect, with people very naturally. So here you are with somebody, it's the biggest day of their lives. They are nervous as heck about every single thing. And, here you are, kind of the calm in the storm. How do you connect with your clients?
Well, I don't know. I usually meet with my clients numerous times prior to their weddings. So I feel like by the time their wedding day comes along, we've already established a bit of that connection and that trust. I prepare them in advance with schedules and timelines and all of this stuff, and I flat out will let them know. I'm like, I've done this a few times. I've got time in there. Like I build time into the schedule so that if things aren't going to plan, which they usually don't, we're still okay.
Yeah.
And so ultimately my goal is to allow them to enjoy their day
Right.
without the stress. I am in charge of schedules and making sure everybody's on time.
Right.
And just trying to stay out of the way. I think one of my favorite compliments that I've gotten so far, I had a couple come in and we were going through their wedding photos, and we got to one where his grandmother was talking to him before the ceremony. This was at Nazareth Church, and so I was kind of shooting through the doorway into what is that
Like
little
the atrium? Like the entryway into the
entryway
chapel.
into the chapel. And that was one of his favorite photos. He's like, I didn't even realize you were there.
Yeah.
And that's the goal. Like, my goal is to be able to hit this microphone.
Come here
a
and
few
break
times.
stuff. We're gonna let her finish this amazing story, but we're gonna circle back to how you came in and changed everything that I had spent all day setting up, right when she got here. So
Yep.
having a photographer come in to interview us, huge mistake. Next time,
Hey, no, we got
Zoom.
we got it figured
you
out.
did. So no, but let's get back to, because I think this is so important. There's. It's the candid moments, especially during a wedding, because of course, as a photographer, you're going to have your go-to must-have shots.
Right.
You're going to have the family, you're going to have the just the bridesmaids, just the groomsmen. You're going to have all the must-have moments, and those are the pictures that people will look at. And they're like, oh, I love them. But it's the candid shots. It's the shots that the couple doesn't know you're taking a picture at that time.
Right.
That's what really, I think, gets them. Those are the
Right.
pictures they hang up.
Yep.
Those are the pictures that make it to the wall. Right?
Those are the ones that I feel really help kind of tell the story of the day.
Yes.
Because that's them in their element with their people,
Yes.
interacting and having a good time, or whatever the emotion may be at that moment. So that's always what I focus on. And I feel like that's what a lot of my clients specifically are coming to me for, is those candid moments.
And you had also you had brought up timelines, how you establish with the couple before the big day. I mean,
Right.
you obviously have meetings with them. You sit with them. I'm assuming you're a phone call away. If they have, you get the
Right.
brides that call once a week, and then you get the ones that they'll book you and then they'll call you up a few months later, and
Right.
and that's great. It's but. I've always looked at it, especially like from the DJ's side of stuff. We've always deferred to either the photographer's timeline, or if they've got a wedding coordinator, the coordinator kind of oversees the whole thing, and they
Right.
will work with you to kind of play with the times to make sure everything balances. But your timeline, I think the photographer's timeline is crucial, because there's so many great moments that can happen. From leading up to the ceremony, during the ceremony, and then the reception. Like my favorite, and this has been kind of a new trend past couple years, are like the sunset pictures.
Yep.
And so we always defer to the photographer's timeline, because if the DJ has a timeline, first dance at 7:30. Well, if sunset's at 7:31,
Right.
the DJ's not going to say, "Oh, too bad you missed the one time of day that you're going to have these awesome pictures."
Our time to shine.
Yeah. Swing and you miss. We're sorry. But those are the crucial points of the whole reception. So it's working with the photographers, and so for couples that are kind of going through that planning process, when they first get started, and this is something I just someday I need to figure out how to write a book about this, because this just fascinates me, is that literally from the day a couple gets engaged, or maybe let's say from the day they start planning, right, instantly they have to become experts in planning weddings. Right? And they don't know what questions to ask. They don't know what to look for. Anybody can put a nice website together, or nifty Facebook post, whatever you want to do. Anybody can do that. So when you're talking to that couple for the first time, day one,
Yep.
what do you do to kind of help assure them that, hey, I got you. I'm going to make your day amazing. You know what I mean?
Honestly,
Is there anything that kind of specifically, or is it just being nice?
Honestly, I feel like my ultimate goal is to establish that connection,
Right.
that trust in general. Just because, I can tell them until I'm blue in the face that I'm going to do a good job. But unless they feel comfortable with me, we're not going to have that connection, or that there's not going to be that depth of trust. I mean, at this point, I feel like my work kind of speaks for itself, so I don't necessarily have to try to convince people. However, building that connection with people is my ultimate goal.
And that shows. It really does. And it's your work and your reputation. I mean, you've been doing this a while, especially in this market, but you've been around a good portion of the state, I'm sure.
Right.
You guys you win the wedding game. Photographers win the wedding vendor game.
Yeah.
Because there has been so many couples over the years that have called, Ultimate Entertainment, and they're like, they were at a wedding that we did, and like, hey, we're getting married in California. Dude, we totally want you as the DJ. And I'm like, we won't even charge you. Just pay for us to get our equipment there.
Right.
We'll do the reception for free. Just cover, the cost
Right.
of getting everything. You photographers actually get to go to those places. Yeah, I love it. They win. Like, where do we go? Well, how far can the van travel? Where do they go? Oh,
Hawaii.
Yeah, Europe. Sure. I'll follow you around and take pictures all day long. You guys win. I mean, it's awesome.
Sometimes.
So, with couples, there's you get some of the there's a lot of brides that fall into a trap, and we did this on our last podcast. We talked about wedding experts and how I'm not a fan of the traditional wedding experts, the bridal magazines,
Right.
the wedding guides, here 10 simple steps to a carefree wedding.
I was literally just thinking about a couple times where I've had people reach out, and you can tell that they're asking all these questions that
Going
are
right down the book, right? Yep.
Because they're asking about lighting, and it's like, I don't even know how I'm going to explain this to you.
What aperture setting do you have
Right.
your, like, who know? I know people have asked me for for amps for us. What kind of, what tell me about your amps, the technical. I'm like, you plug it in and we turn it on and they're loud enough to be great for your reception. I couldn't even tell you the model, but the experts will get so into this couple's head.
Right.
Because they're writing from LA or New York or Chicago or Dallas, wherever it is. And my whole kind of line, and I think the underlying theme of this whole show as we build this out, as we talk to other vendors, as we talk to couples, is you've got your experts. We're right here.
Right.
It's your vendors. Your vendors are the experts. We're the ones that. It's not just we're not just going to be there on the day of your wedding. I'm guessing if a bride has a question for you, and it's 9 months before her wedding or a year and a half before whatever the date is,
Right.
It's not like you're going to say, "Now you're good. I don't need to see you for 10 months. We'll talk. We'll figure that out then."
Right. Right.
So if they lean on you and just trust your expertise in weddings, they will have an amazing stress-free day by default,
Right.
right? And so what's your preparation? Like you had talked about like timelines and stuff. Like when you're preparing with the couple, how detailed do you go? What do you do to kind of help put their mind at ease? Like, do you talk about kind of a schedule of shots, like when you're going to do what, or how does all that kind of come together?
Well, I usually figure out ultimately when the big times are, the ceremony start time and the reception start time, when they're going to have dinner and all of that stuff. And we just kind of based off of, I'll ask them like how big their families are and how big their wedding party is. And I'll kind of base the timeline and how long each group is going to last based off of that. And then ultimately beyond the main events where I need to make sure that everybody's there that needs to be there and all of that, my goal is just to capture kind of what's going on. I do have them, we usually meet about a month before their wedding.
Sure.
And I'll figure out, like, are you going to be having any mementos or anything that I need to be aware of. I mean, some people will sew little hearts on their dresses.
Oh, and you've
or
got
they,
we've had some of them come. I mean, some of the static shots where you get like like the rings, like kind of the posed moments like that. And you are so awesome at capturing that. There's one of them that sticks out in my head where the gown is hung in a window. Do you remember that one?
Yep.
Where was that? Do you remember where that was? It looked like one of the like a barn kind of wedding or one of the barn reception places.
the barn reception.
It's I'd have to look at where the specific picture is.
I've-
but it's
I've-
a gorgeous. I mean, the lighting with the dress hanging with the light behind it, and then you've got kind of the shading on either side. It's beautiful. Like, go to her website. It's on her website.
I'm wondering if that was the one. It was in Cedar Falls. I can't remember the name of the church, but it's. It was in a church, but yeah.
So with those kind of pictures, with the kind of let's call them the staged pictures.
Yeah.
Is that stuff that you kind of go over with them in advance? That or do you ask? Do you have any specifics? Do you want a shot of the rings? Do you want a shot of the bouquet of
Was
of the
it that
dress?
one?
Yeah, that was it. It just came perfect. Yeah, it was that one. Yes,
That one.
See, that's why we've got the big
Right,
screen there.
There we go. Yeah, I typically will let them know like what I'm going to need in advance. I try to do those detail shots and stuff before we get into her like getting her dress on and all of that.
Sure.
So I'll let her know like these are all the things that I can photograph. If it's something that you want photographed, just make sure everything's together.
Mm-hmm.
And even if they're not there, I'll get there and I'll find everything that I need and go and get those shots for
Sure.
them.
So, really kind of to summarize what you've been talking about with a lot of this is that couples, as you're going through that planning process and you're looking to your photographer, because usually when people get engaged, they will book the reception hall first, right? And then DJs and photographers usually tie for second. We're kind of it's the big three. It's the venues, it's the DJs, it's the photographers. So as these couples are kind of getting started, if you're listening to this and you're just in the beginning planning process, and this is actually a show that Andrew and I are kind of putting together for down the road where we don't need as good of lighting because it'll just be me and you. We're gonna come back to the lighting, but. One of the things that couples should know going in when they're looking and researching their photographers is, are they someone that's going to step up and really kind of sketch out that timeline? And again, kind of a spoiler for next show or one of the shows coming up is that there's different stages and different creations of timelines. There's the timeline that the couple first does when they first get engaged. They've got a timeline.
Right.
And it's usually really, 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 really wrong. But it's they're all excited. They're like, look what I did.
10 minutes to take the family photos.
Yeah, which is okay, cool. But it gives you something to work on.
Right.
And then there's the kind of the first step of the kind of professional timeline would be with the photographer, because you'll be able to step in and say, yeah, this is a great outline of how we want to do things. You get an A check, or a check plus or whatever that is. But now let's kind of put it together in time. And then ultimately, like, my favorite word with couples is the word ish.
Ish.
ISH. It is magic. For planning a wedding, it is even more magical on the day of. And the same thing applies to photographers, I would assume, is that you can't say, okay, we're going to do, wedding party pictures are going to be exactly a half hour before the ceremony. So the ceremony's at 4, at 3:30. We are lined up and we're good to go. Right. Never happens.
No.
Never happens. So, so kind of where I was going with this is couples, as you're looking for your photographers, find one that will help you put together an order of events, a timeline that you can kind of look to, but also know that, and I'm going to be really corny here because I can, don't be married to your timeline. Right? To be able to pivot and adjust. Because I've seen other photographers out there, I've seen other DJs out there that are so rigid and they're so stuck with that. And these are the things that the wedding experts in those magazines won't tell you about. And they're the things that you don't learn about from somebody's webpage or Facebook page, right? It's that ability for you to guide, but still go with the flow. Yep, we're gonna stay as close to that timeline as we can. But if you throw the ish factor in there, it takes a lot of that stress off the couple's shoulders.
Right.
And if they know going in that from you, they know, hey, Nichole has this. All we need to do is wear the fancy clothes, say I do it roughly the right time, and everything else just kind of falls into place.
Right.
Right. And that's the feeling, especially with the couples or the receptions that you and I have worked with together in the past. Every couple that I talk to, they're all like, oh, just ask Nichole. She's got it. I'm like, hey, we're ready for your first dance whenever you are. And instead of the bride saying, well, hold on, I want to talk to my my grandfather and my this person and this person, they're all like, just talk to Nichole. She's got it. I'm like, okay, cool. But being able to kind of go with that moment and to give them that confidence in you is huge.
Right.
And I think that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on as a guest, because that's not something that you can convey in a website.
Right.
So I want people to learn, like when I ask like how you first got started and how you got involved. I want people to kind of learn your heart with this.
Right.
Because this is somebody's day one, right? Every wedding. And so to me, I think it's so big. Like, what inspires you? What like, when you get to somebody's reception, like, is there a moment at the reception that kind of sticks out with you? Is there like what inspires you to keep going with weddings? Because at the end of the day, for a lot of us in the business, it can very easily become, it's Saturday. Hey, what do you do for an ordering? It's Saturday. I do weddings.
Right.
And it can become routine. So what's your inspiration? What keeps it fresh? What keeps it
For just
building?
receptions, or are we talking like weddings as a whole?
For just photography, for the whole, for your side of the equation?
Right.
What is there, like one moment that you get the, aw, it's like, oh, it's so cute. Yeah, you've seen 100 of them, but at every wedding, it's an awe moment at all 100 of them.
Right.
Does that make sense? Like for me, it's their first dance.
Yeah.
I've done thousands of weddings, and but at every time their first dance, it doesn't matter if you've got 10 guests or 10,000 guests for that 3 minutes and 47 seconds on their first dance, when it's just them out there on the dance floor. That's my awe moment, So do you have like an awe moment, like when you're shooting, whether it's the ceremony or the reception?
The awe moment for me is usually the father-daughter dance.
Oh yeah.
I probably cry the most during father-daughter dances. I don't know. I have one or a couple in particular where my favorite photo from the father-daughter dance, you have the father-daughter dancing, obviously, and then I was actually focused on the mom crying in the background. I loved that one.
Yes.
And
again, kind of an organic moment.
Right.
Because the mom obviously didn't know she was in the shot.
Right.
So this is, again, as you're looking for photographers, folks, when you're out there, look for those kind of candid, those distant shots like that, because that's what's going through your head. You captured that perfectly,
right?
And made that moment. That's one of those hang on the wall moments,
right?
That's awesome. And
because in stuff like that, the bride is so focused on her dance with her dad,
right.
She doesn't see her mom crying in the background, right? And so I want to be able to capture those for my couples so that they're able to see those things. Wedding days, they go by so fast.
Yes. No one believes you until the end of the night.
Right.
The couples will not believe you. You'll tell them, hey, this is going to go by, bam.
Yep.
And they're like, no, we're up at 4 a.m. We're going to party till 4 a.m. This is 24 hours and it's going to be huge and it's going to be long. And I'm like, you know what? It can be that long, but it's going to feel like about a second.
Right.
Yep. So capturing those moments. Yes.
Everybody told me that. And on my wedding day, I remember specifically standing there thinking, all right, I'm living in the moment. We're living in the moment right now. I got to remember all the details. And honestly, I remember those details in that moment when I was thinking about it, and everything else was a blur.
It does.
Right.
No, it's one of the things, like what I tell couples during like our kind of final check before their wedding. One of the things I always recommend that they do is find the opposite corner of the room. And so you got all of the guests that are kind of congregating, dance floor, bar, kind of main area. But there's always that one corner of the room that isn't occupied by a lot of people. And I always tell couples, find that corner and just go. Don't tell anybody. Just go and watch your reception for like 10 seconds. It doesn't have to be a big, we're hiding in the corner for an hour.
Right.
Although some couples, they like to do that, but hey, teach their own. But to find that moment, because it gives you a perspective of all of this amazing thing that's happening because of your big day. And it's so easy, like you said, like that bride that missed that moment with her mom because she's focused on her dad.
Right. So
she missed that moment. So to take a step back and away for just a second or two, I think is so important. And that's, I'm so jealous because that is a great awe moment, is the father-daughter dance. I've got all boys. So I never get to have that moment ever. So no, I'm dance with my daughter-in-law someday. That's about as close as I get to be. I never get to scare like prospective boyfriend. I'm always kind of bummed out about that. I'm seriously, I'm totally bummed about that. Like, I remember a million years ago in my dating days, there was a girl I went on a first date with, and she warned me. She's like, well, you're gonna have to meet my dad. And I'm like 16, and I'm cocky. I'm like, oh no, parents love me. I went to the door. They lived out in the middle of nowhere. I get to the door. This guy was like 6'7", answers the door with a shotgun in his hand.
Of course.
Cocks it and says, what? And I had two thoughts. Thought number one is, well, you're dead. Yeah, it's 16 years. It was good. They're never going to find your body because you're in the middle of nowhere.
Oh, my gosh.
Or the other one was, okay, this is a test. So, I smile. Good evening, sir. My name is Sean. You must be, and I'm not going to mention your names or anything, but you must be such and such as father. It's a pleasure to meet you. And it was so funny because it threw him off.
Right.
Here's this giant of a man, big shotgun, and he's like, yeah, come on in. I'm like, I passed the test.
Yep, that's how you know you passed.
Most importantly, I didn't get shot. So when let me paint this, or let me ask you this question. Let's say you're talking to a couple, but you're already booked on the date that they want. So you're already booked on their wedding day. So you don't have to run the risk of losing any business on this. Right. But as a wedding professional, as a vendor on our Stress Free, one of the things that I really look for are vendors that care, that have that kind of family feeling with couples. They want to make their day amazing.
Right.
So what would you tell a couple to look for? You get the experts that put them in the magazines, and you definitely find out what model camera they're using. Like you care, or no. But what would you tell a couple to look for in a photographer?
Honestly, when couples contact me and I don't have the date available, I have a list of other photographers that I will send them that are recommended by me.
So why? What? How did they make the list?
Because I know that they are going to take care of that couple the way that I would take care of that couple. They are going to focus on those little moments. They're going to be attentive. They are going to be thorough. They are going to, they've shot probably hundreds of weddings before. Like, they know what they're doing. And I know that they're going to produce a consistent product. And so, I don't know, honestly, just, making sure that their work represents the style of work that you want is going to be huge.
And how, because that you bring up a good point, because there's a lot of different styles of photographers. You get the photographers that like the more posed kind of, I don't want to use the word studio shots because you're out, but kind of the classic, the straight pose one. There's the more organic kind of in the moment. There's the, like you had mentioned, kind of invisible in the background kind of thing. So when a couple is looking for a photographer, how do they how do they figure out what category that photographer fits into? What should they look for? Does that make sense as a question?
I mean, obviously, galleries, you get on their website or their social media or whatever, and you look through those images, and if there's a consistency in those images, like you're looking for that consistency. So for me personally, my style is I feel like it's pretty true to color. It's kind of a mix between traditional photography, but I add that emotion to it, is the way that I describe my own work. And so looking at those galleries is going to be obviously your first thing. And then being able to connect with the photographer is going to be the next thing that I would look at. Because your photographer is the only vendor that is literally following you around all day.
All day.
You don't want somebody who you don't connect with.
I talked to a photographer yesterday, and it's funny that you mentioned that because she refers to herself as like the 7th bridesmaid.
Right.
If you have 6 bridesmaids in your wedding, she's like, I'm the 7th one. I just don't have to wear the dress, and I've got a camera.
Right.
Because you're literally with them in most cases. From the beginning through, either the end of the night or at least up to like the end of their first kind of the big moments at the reception.
Right.
Yeah, that is so important. Is having that really. You guys really are the most personal connection, I think, because it's right there with them. So you've got to gel with them,
right?
Because if you think back, and I'm old, so I think of like the old Sears. Was it Sears that had the portrait studio?
Yes.
Sears Portrait Studio.
And JCPenney.
Where they, look at the little squeaky toy. Everybody smile.
My parents would threaten us with that. If you don't start behaving, we're going to go to, and it was a 45-minute drive for us.
This
on
was
a
a threat.
Sunday. Yeah. We're going to go to Sears and we're going to get pictures taken.
Be good or it's family picture time. Most parents are like, timeouts, taking away things. Your family's like, you're going to have to be nice to each other and take pictures.
Right.
His mom listens, so be careful. She yelled at me after our first podcast. She didn't yell at me. I love you. Don't worry. She totally yelled at me. Andrew didn't get enough time on the mic.
You probably deserved it.
Probably. Yeah. No, I'm not going to argue with that. It's like my wife pointed out to me. I had sent her a rough cut of like our first show. And she's like, well, it sounds good, but the microphone's blocking your face. I'm like, babe, it's a podcast. You don't need to see this.
Right.
She loves me because I'm cute. It's okay.
What do you think is, what's the biggest mistake a couple can make in their photographer? What is the biggest thing they can do? Or a list, if you got a list.
Honestly, I guess it's really going to depend. The biggest mistake, or maybe it's not even necessarily the biggest mistake, but the biggest risk that you are going to run when you are going purely based off of price. Like, I understand budgets. I totally get it. At the same time, if you're spending $1,000 on your cake, but you only want to spend like $200 on your photographer. The cake's getting eaten, and you don't even have good pictures of it.
One's gonna last. Yeah.
It better be damn good cake.
Right. That was just the first thing that popped into my head.
No, but that's 100% true.
Right.
And especially with photographers, what I tell couples. If they talk to me, really early in the planning process, where they're still trying to figure out, if they're just kind of calling around just to get a feel for things.
Right.
Honestly, I tell them, and here I am, I run a DJ business. That's how we make our living. But I tell them, when you're figuring out your budget for vendors, your number one budget thing really should be your photographer.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, and not to take anything away from being married, which of course is the most important part of the whole thing,
right.
But at the end of the day, what you're left with is your memories, and your photographer is the one that's documenting those memories.
Right.
The big ones. Everybody's got their phone, and that's great. You'll get a whole bunch of selfies from 10-year-olds. Enjoy. But to have those really. It's not just the picture. I mean, if you look at some of the work you do, I mean, the lighting and the editing and the stuff that you do after you take the picture. I don't know if a lot of people realize that as a photographer, there is so much more than just point, click, and move on, right? I mean, all of the post work that you do, like for us, after this show's done, it's going to take us, 3 minutes of post. We're going to edit out all the stupid crap at the beginning where we were just kind of talking, and we're going to say, it's done. Someday we'll hire a producer.
Absolutely.
There you go.
Might have to be Nichole. She'll come in and fix it.
I'll do it.
So she came in, she sat down, I had everything all set up. So we've got, I wish I could show people how cramped we actually are in here. We're all doing this around my desk in my office. Here's how high budget we are. And I'm like, I checked the shots and I sat down. I'm like, yep, looks good. And I sat down in Nicole's chair before she got here. I'm like, yep, that'll look good. She comes in and she's like, this lighting is crap. I'm like, oh, you're so right. So we tried one set of lights and it turned her purple.
It did.
That was not.
Now I'm blue.
Well, then you
I'm
turned
not
on the
entirely sure what
strobe
happened,
and
but-
gave me a seizure. And
We're new at this. We're
Hey,
we're learning.
I'm here to help.
You know what?
Great.
And thank you.
The globe.
Hey, come on. Those are awesome.
It is a pretty cool
now that
globe.
we know we're going to have the diplomats table in place,
Yeah.
because you truly look like you're in a Senate hearing right now.
I need a little presidential tablecloth right now. Missing that one.
Oh, I love it. So yeah, we're totally going to use the table and definitely we'll do better lighting. Like my kids, because Kobe had when he was streaming for gaming, and he actually made some money doing it, which is
That's
the worst irony of a parent ever. Because
Right.
when I grew up, video games were just becoming a thing.
Right.
We're far from the online gaming and all of that, but it was get your homework done before you turn on the Atari 2600 that I had, because I was really good at Pong or whatever the stupid game was. So here's Kobe, who is a really good gamer. The kid's got hand-eye coordination that just is. Let me put it this way: I stopped playing against him even online when he was 9 because it got embarrassing getting my ass kicked by a 9-year-old. So I'm like, nope. So he's really good at it.
Yep.
And then in I think it was his senior year in high school, he started streaming, and he had a camera set up, and he got some lights, which I need to steal from his gaming room and bring here, actual set lights, and was actually making somebody had some subscribers and was doing really well with it. So I don't remember where that story went or why we were going
talking
with
about
it.
lighting.
We're talking about lighting.
Lighting.
And I got to brag about my kids. So that's,
Yeah.
that's how I work that in. So next time we're going to have better lighting thanks to my child. We'll just go with that. Speaking of children, so I need to bring up your kids. All right. Nichole has 2 absolutely adorable littles. How old are they?
Riley will be 6 next month, and Tucker is 8.
So she has a thing on that she posts all the time. It's Rileyisms and Tuckerisms, right? And they're you can actually look them up because you hashtag all of
Right,
them. So you can
I
look
do.
them all up. And I printed a few of them up because
Oh my gosh.
they are so awesome. And so here's a Rileyism. Tucker, let's say, passes gas in a different part of the house, and Riley yells from the bathroom, that isn't going to make you better at piano. Hashtag Rileyism. I think that's awesome. Or your recent one. This is Riley again, right? So your little girl, and she's the youngest. So, Mommy, why aren't you wearing your glasses today? Mommy, because I don't like wearing glasses at the gym. So Riley says, so you go to school and then you go to the gym. You say yes. So Riley flexes. Says, grow them muscles, and then lifts up her shirt, looks at her abs, and giggles. And I'm just checking to see if I have abs. I'm like, this is awesome. She's got a bunch of them. And what do I post on everyone that I see? What do I post every time?
That you're just waiting for me to write a book.
Write a book. She's going to be my retirement because I'm going to be your agent. That's the deal. It's going to make $1 bazillion. They are hilarious. Riley and Tuckerisms. You need to make the book out. I'm not even kidding.
I don't even know how to make a book.
You know what? You got them on your Facebook page. Just copy and paste it all and just send it to a publisher.
There you go. It sounds really easy.
Here, make this a book.
Right. A few $1,000s later.
We'll see how it goes. It has been an absolute pleasure having you here. I'm so glad you agreed to put up with us for this. It's so kind of you. I could not say enough great things about Nichole Diehm Photography, and it's just it's her name.com, NicholeDiehmPhotography.com. Find her, talk to her. Seriously, you make best friends with every client you work with. You know, you read the reviews and she's the greatest friend on the whole planet. I'm like, oh my gosh, but it's awesome.
Yeah.
You know, and it's inspiring, and it's so important to somebody for their big day.
Right.
So I'm so thankful you're here, and I love your talent and what you do, because you're really good at it, and you should absolutely deserve all the successes.
Oh, I really appreciate that. Thanks, Sean.
You betcha. Hey, coming up next show, just to give you a teaser of what's happening, is I believe we are going to be talking to one of the venues in town that just did a multi-million-dollar renovation. It's absolutely gorgeous. And I think we actually have to put up with two people. We're going to have to figure out lighting for two people.
Yeah.
Because it'll be the GM and I think their banquet manager or one of their main coordinators are coming here. So apparently the lighting is not going to cut it. Hey, if you've put up with us for this long, please subscribe on whatever platform you're listening to. If you take just an extra couple seconds, go to YouTube, subscribe on YouTube. You can actually go back and rewatch these, because wow, totally worth it.
Yes.
Right? We're entertaining.
So worth it.
So worth it. Thanks a lot, gang. We really appreciate it, and we will see you next time. Have a wonderful, stress-free day.